Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cybersec Migrant. My name is Femi and I'm your host. I'm sure many of us have watched movies like War Games, Ocean's 8, or even the mind-bending series Mr. Robot. Thanks to Hollywood's magical touch, we've all witnessed the spellbinding allure of computer wizardry in those movies. Computer screens filled with lines of code, neon-lit hackers walking in dimly lit rooms in a hoodie in a basement, and exhilarating chase sequences in the digital realm. If you ask anyone on the street what they think about cybersecurity, that's probably the image they have in their head. However, the truth is so far from that. And that's why today on this episode, we've got a guest who is a certified pen tester and ethical hacker who's going to be telling us all there is to know about certified ethical hacking and penetration testing as it relates to cybersecurity. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We're glad you're here. I hope you consider subscribing and also hitting the notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates when we post new videos. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for watching another one of our videos. And without further ado, let's get into today's topic. And our guest today is Harsh Modi, who is someone who is he's got a lot of achievements. He has a laundry list of achievements. He's a bug bounty hunter. He's an entrepreneur. He's worked for several Fortune 500 companies like Optiv, the Big Four, including PricewaterhouseCoopers. He's also been involved in consultancy, providing consultancy services to several customers. And his customer base is all over the world. So here in Vancouver, in Ontario, in the US, in India. But I'm not going to take away his shine. I'm going to give it over to Harsh. So Harsh, can you introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Harsh, and I've been an offensive security engineer for like 7 years. And I worked, as Femi said, I worked with a lot of companies, and I've done consultation to a lot of companies like in the banking sector, in the government forces, law enforcement, at every place, with companies like Optiv, PwC. Currently, I am at Bell, and so yes, there's a lot of learning in my 7 to 8 years of work. And apart from there, I'm a CTF player. There was a time where I was in top 100 all over the world on platforms like Hack the Box. If you're aware of it, it's a CTF platform and it's pretty competitive platform. On that time, I created a team called Try Harder. Yes, it was an international team from
Try.
Try harder. Yes, yes, actually. At that time, I was the only one working in security analyst family when I
hmm
started the team. And then
Okay.
everyone else was kind of a SOC person and all those things.
Yeah.
Not actual as an offensive security or a penetration tester.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after 6 months, 7 months, everyone else was a penetration
Penetration
tester.
tester.
And yes, and we end up being like top 100 all over the world. I personally was actually, when I was in India, I was among top 300, 200, because at the time India is very competitive on such
It
platforms.
still is. It
But the
still is
minute
very
it
competitive, I
still is,
think.
yes, yes, it still is. But actually, when I moved to Canada in 2019 as a student, I was like in top 10, 20 immediately because of the
There's
points and
less people
everything.
here, right?
Yes,
40 million to
yes. So, but
1.4 billion.
yes, yes. Actually, my city's population is greater than Canada's population.
Ooh, I'm not
Yes.
surprised. I am not surprised at
Yes.
all. Okay.
Yes. Then
Um,
there were like certain CTFs where I won those CTFs and I got a VMware license key and all those things for free. But it was nice learning for me for CTFs and stuff. So yes, that's my journey as a penetration tester, and I was able to. I have some swags and bounties on Baccarat or HackerOne, but here in Canada you pay like 30-35% taxes. So
the government
I
wants their
I have
share.
yes, I have given up that idea here.
Okay. Okay.
But
Okay.
yes, okay.
That's very impressive. Thanks so much for talking about that. Before we dive right into this episode, let's ask you a couple of questions because there's some things that people may not know about you. So, can you share one thing that people probably don't know about you? Something random, weird, up to you, but something that people don't know. I know what I would share, but I'm going to wait for you to say it yourself.
Okay, okay. One word. I think when people see my achievements and everything, I'm kind of like an influencer in the student community,
Yes,
but
I
they
oh,
really don't
yes.
see this, they really don't see the struggle that I have went through when I was in my early stages. I still remember working a full-time job and then researching for another 4 hours. And to be honest with you, family, when I came to Canada, I did not have a single photo with my family that I went with them on a vacation
Mm.
or with them at a family function or nothing. I just had one photo with my family, and it was at the airport where I came to Canada. It was the Mumbai International Airport. So that's the struggle I've seen. I used to work from 9 to 5, I believe 10 to 5 or 9 to 5. That's the Indian standard
Standard time. Yeah.
business hours,
Okay.
Indian standard business hours. And it's like 9 hour job. And after that, I used to go home, quickly eat dinner, and then from again in
Start
the
working
night,
again.
8 or 9 o'clock. Yes, absolutely. 8 or 9 o'clock, I used to do that, research, learn new things. And then 1 o'clock, I used to sleep in the night. And then morning, I used to wake up at 8 o'clock,
Burning the
and then
midnight
I used to
oil.
go. Yes.
Good,
So
good,
that was
good.
like my life for
Good.
quite a few
Is it
years
different
in the
now?
beginning.
Are you still doing that all the time? You know, they say we need our beauty
No, no,
sleep,
no,
right?
no. Now it's completely different. Now it's
That's good.
completely different.
That's good. So talking back to that, I remember you said when you were, when you were doing the CTF stuff, you were one of the top in the CTF in your group, and I know we spoke about this before because we both do some stuff with Isaac Vancouver, and I was telling you the other day that it seems everybody who wants a mentor wants to get into pen testing, right? So from your
Yes.
experience, from what you know as an accomplished pen tester yourself, what's the role of pen testing in today's cybersecurity environment? Can you shed some light on that?
Yes. So a lot of these things that come into the student mind or someone who is fresh in the industry comes from Hollywood movies where they don't start from like basics, but
Mm.
there is a I mean, I saw the movie Fast and Furious, and I see that the girl just break into U.S. Department of Defense
Or
in
Ocean's
just five
8.
minutes. Yes, and Ocean's 8. Yes. So most of the students, and because the word hacking and cyber security and all those are very much marketed into the industry, into the society, a lot of people. But when it comes to job roles, people are beginners, students, freshers, or even developers who want to come into cybersecurity. They are not actually aware of what actually pen testing is. So pen testing is you are legally breaking into an organization
Yeah.
and finding security flaws for that organization and then reporting back into it. And it is your responsibility to report, explain, and guide them or help them in the patching or remediation of that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, there are various ways and techniques and methodologies and everything to do that, but students or people who are new to this industry are pretty much not aware about it.
True, true. That's very true. I know it's like you said, Hollywood movies has glamorized hacking, and everybody thinks
Yes,
that's everything. And yes, it's important because it's important to know where your security risk and what your flaws are. But I think it's also, like you said, it's important to note that to be a pen tester, you have to be legally doing the hacking. So if you are doing it illegally,
yes,
you are not a pen tester, you are a malicious threat actor, right? So,
yes.
so
So
to
there are
be,
like cyber laws
yeah,
for it.
yeah, absolutely.
Just for our audience information, because I know a lot of students would be watching this. So there are cyber laws for it, and there are extradition laws for it. So,
Oh, yeah.
example, if you're sitting in Canada and if you do something wrong in Europe, and you're under the impression that who will come travel 8,000 kilometers and grab me,
You'd be surprised.
depends on what damage you have done,
Yeah.
to be very honest with you, because I have seen people traveling entire world to catch a few fugitives, and these are all school students. 2016, someone broke into Apple internal servers,
Ooh.
and the student. I don't know whether we should call him a student or not because he is a professional, but his age was only 16 years of. Then
Wow.
there are when the FBI grabs anyone from the dark web or those kind of scenarios, the stu the the people are very young,
Mm.
like 21 years, 19 years. They are college students.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yes, and I always wonder that what a waste of life it is, because literally it is very difficult to find someone who at least knows 30 to 40% of job role in the offensive market, and whoever is in this field, they know that the market is pretty tight. Like there are lots of openings, but there are a few people who actually know how to break into it, and that's why students, if they put a little more effort on from their end, they will have a bright career in this industry.
Yeah, true, true. And just to pick up on that thought of what you said, where you said most of the people who get nabbed for, these crimes, either by the FBI or the CSIS or whatever, they are generally very young or college students. So you begin to wonder what kind of education have they had? What kind of training have they had? Or to put it in a better way, if I wanted to become a pen tester and do this legally, what kind of education and training do I really need, to be an accomplished pen tester like yourself?
So there are no college or universities that provide offensive security training
Okay.
or penetration training. As far as I know, I have not gone out in the world and researched all colleges and universities because the offensive side of the security or the red team or penetration testing, this is something that is very reverse in terms of the bookish knowledge that the schools have. So I'll give you an example in for the schools. What for 20 years we have a mentality of reading something, and then something will come from that book, and then you are writing it into the paper, or you are researching and then writing, depending on which country you are.
Hmm.
But in offensive security, there is no scope. The only scope is like a website or a
Hmm.
network.
Go find
So
it.
the chapters, you are not sure about the chapters. You have a limited deadline. You cannot take your entire life to perform one pen test, right?
Yeah,
So
true,
there are
true.
certain deadlines, there are certain methodologies, there are certain cheat sheets, and there is certain amount of preparation. But the most important thing is methodology. And a lot of students, when they do these labs, and yes, right now when they do labs, even if they practice labs, doing labs is not a wrong thing, but they have to understand the scenario. When they are doing labs, the firewalls are not in place. The
Yeah,
other defensive mechanisms are not in place.
true, true.
In a
It's not
real
like a
world
production
scenario,
environment.
yes. In a real world scenario, when you're attacking something, you have to see whether the firewall is there or not,
Yeah,
where what is there or not. So usually when they mean in between the firewall is blocking your payload and you're not reaching the actual site
yeah.
and stuff. So for your audience, I have a few resources
Okay,
to
cool.
which are tested for offensive security. The first is Hack the Box. I highly
Yeah.
recommend Hack the Box because there are two resources, Hack the Box and Try Hack Me, and there is always an ongoing debate. And I have received no compensation from any of these.
They should
So
compensate you.
yes, that's their choice. But
Mm.
Hack the Box doesn't have path. There is one IP and you have to break into it.
Okay.
And there is no guidelines and nothing. So Hack the Box is much more preferred by managers and when they do headhunting and or when they are hiring. Try
Okay.
Hack Me, on the other hand, is a little bit comfortable for the beginners because it has step-by-step explanation of everything.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
this is the first step, this is the second step, this is the third step. So if you're a complete beginner, then you should choose Try Hack Me. But at an eventual time, you should switch to Hack the Box to genuinely know whether you are progressing or not.
Okay.
How I do it today, if I want to learn something that is I'm completely new to, for example, radio hacking or anything, then I would go and try to do one room on Try Hack Me. When I do the room, I'm aware of the tools, technologies, methodologies, and some basic exploitation techniques. And then I try to do the same room or an equivalent room on Hack the Box. And then I would try to see that whether I have developed the mentality or not for the same topic.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And I do know that those platforms are very useful. Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. Almost every conference we go to, I know, like at B Sides Vancouver, there was that whole, um,
Yes.
test that people who were there to do it. I cannot pen test to save my life. I would admit that now. That's not my specialty. So that's why I defer to people like you when it comes to that. But just to take you back a little bit, talking about, we know pen testing, like you said, is legally breaking into an environment and trying to find the flaws. That's what it is. Why would you want to do that, or why does a company need to have a pen tester on the payroll, or what are the risks of not having a pen tester on the payroll, for example? That's why is it so important, this role, to have this role?
So basically, I will explain you in two different ways
Okay.
to understand. Usually, a large company or a similar, it depends on the mindset, Fanny. If it is a large company or a small company, what they do is they will have one or two resources on site so that they provide genuine guidance to the company.
Hmm.
And then most of the work they will outsource
Yeah.
to a consulting company who is kind of like specialization. So now they will have guidance from their on-site resources, which will they rely on? Okay, for example, I and you are a offensive security consultant at a company XYZ. So we will decide that, okay, what is the release, when we need a pen test, what are the requirements, what is the scope, whether this whether the report vulnerabilities in the report, do we have to triage it or it's a false positive according to our knowledge, and all this stuff. So that's how there is one ideology.
Okay.
The second ideology is to either have a complete in-house team or completely outsource it to someone who is very well recognized in the industry.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. It's because pen testing is something that is like not a ongoing activity.
Yeah, true.
The industry standard says that pen testing should be done twice a year,
Hmm.
depending on what kind of assets and
And
whatever
what
you
what
own, web
standards you're
application.
following is PCI DSS, all of that.
Yes, yes. So, and pen testing is everywhere.
Exactly.
Anything that has an IP address, a pen testing is required because at the end of the year, there is something called as compliance. And if you have
Yes.
not performed
They are
pen
not happy.
testing, the, yes, then the
Yeah.
compliance doesn't go through.
Yeah.
So there is web application pen testing, mobile application,
Hmm.
network,
Hmm. Hmm.
IoT, infrastructure,
So many.
uh,
So many.
thin, thin and thick client. So that is all your
Exactly.
EXEs,
Or your various
Linux
endpoints. Yeah.
executables. Yes, Active Directory, cloud, everything.
Cloud just throws a new different dimension into everything as well when it comes to pen testing
Yes,
as well.
yes,
Very true. Very true.
yes. And
So,
currently the hot topic is APIs.
oh yes, oh true, so true.
Yes,
APIs, and there's a friend of mine who also has a podcast, and she's doing a series on APIs right now, and how to keep your API secure, particularly based off of the OWASP top 10. But anyway, that's a different conversation, not right now. Maybe I'm going to get
yes,
her to come and talk about it one day. But so if you're gonna do all of this, and this is the reason why you want to do this, but for someone who is just starting out, who's trying to get into the industry, who's trying to find their feet, how do you build your experience? And you've spoken about try hack me and hack the box, but how do you build your experience and how do you build a portfolio? Because I'm assuming that if you want to find a role, you're going to be showing off your portfolio and say, hey, I've worked on this, or this is my experience. How do you build that so that you can
yes.
showcase that to future employers?
Yes. So you have to understand the perspective of a hiring manager or a person who is recruiting and what they are looking into it. So, according to me, and most of the people in the industry aligned with this thought process, that the first person to get hired is the person who has bug bounties. But remember, there is lots and lots of competition into that, and you
True.
require a specific and rare skill set in that.
Yeah.
The second thing that come is either you have a certain CVE associated to your
With
name,
you. Yeah.
CVIDs,
And those are very important.
certifications. Yes, yes. CVID is also kind of like bug bounty itself, but I have seen people focusing more on monetary rewards rather than
Reputation.
CVIDs. But
Yeah.
certain CVIDs also yield money, and that's a different,
That's a different
whole different,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah, different conversation. But CVIDs, but if you're a student, then I think first two things don't fall into your scope. But I have seen students doing, I've, I've seen uh, college students taking on bug bounty as a full-time role and making a lot of it.
Hmm.
And there was a time when I was in college and doing the same thing. So, and then the fees and everything came from that only. So, yes. The third is CTF. Now, CTF is something that only students and beginners play. There are different types of CTF. So you should go to this website called ctftime.org,
Yeah.
and then you should register for a beginner level CTF, and then you should play it. When I played my first CTF, I was able to solve only one challenge in two in a 2 day time period.
Two
But that
days.
was a yes, I was able to solve only one, but it was like it was not the easiest one and not the
Mm.
hardest one. It was somewhere in between, but it was a good learning. And then within a
Yeah.
year, I was able to manage to be in top 100 all over in the entire competition. But I never gave up, and that's what one thing I always tell to students that because the generation that we have at this point,
Yeah.
and even I am in that generation because I just completed my masters and stuff.
Yeah.
The people are very impatient and intolerant, and if you are
True.
have that characteristics, then I think offensive security because you have to
It's
be
not for
very
you.
patient. Yes, you have to be very patient. You have to research. You have to keep your focus and reconnaissance and everything.
Yeah.
Also, when you are doing labs, you don't do much reconnaissance.
Hmm.
Like you don't do much information gathering and all those stuffs. So
Yeah.
when you're out in the industry, you don't know how to deal with firewalls. Basically, you don't know how to perform reconnaissance. And
Yeah. Because you don't do that
right
during the
now,
labs.
80% of the pen testing and everything is reconnaissance.
Exactly.
OSINT,
Know what you
Google
have.
Docs,
Yeah.
yes, Google Docs, subdomain enumeration. So when
Enumeration.
so at previous companies, we would have this kind of a setup where there are multiple scripts running 24 hours on
Mm.
a company. So for example, let's say Apple. So the moment they register a new subdomain, we would get a notification on Slack. Now this is like 3, 4 years back. So at
Okay.
that time, only Slack had those permissions for creating a bot and stuff. But right now, most of the applications have that bot thing, Discord, Telegram. But the point is that at that time of period, the person with whom I was working were that advanced. So the second point is your environment and your network. If you
Yeah.
don't have an environment that is growing, you will not grow.
Exactly. Exactly.
You will not grow.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, coming back to the point which we were talking, uh, the CTFs and certifications and all those things are, and there is also one more thing which is called as responsible disclosure. So there are some companies, you can just Google this term, responsible disclosure. So
Yeah.
there are some companies who will not pay you because of their budgeting and stuff, but they will acknowledge you that Harsh Modi was one person who reported a medium level security flaw in our website
Which
with
we
a
fixed.
CVSS
Yeah.
score of 5.6 or 6.6 or whatever, and then they will acknowledge you in their Hall of Fame. So you can put that in your resume or on LinkedIn and anywhere,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
you can prove yourself that okay, I reported it to them, and while because you don't see a lot of competition in vulnerability disclosure, so there is a far better chance for you to find one and report one and actually have some fame in the industry.
Yeah. Not the
If you're a
money. Not just the
fresher,
money.
then not just see first you have to learn and then you have to earn.
Exactly.
But but most of the people forget the first step and they directly jump into the second one.
Earning.
So yes, yes,
It is expensive to live in some places like Vancouver, for example. Anyway, that's a different conversation.
yes.
Just to take you back slightly, for those who don't know, what does CTF mean and what is it?
Yes, so CTF is a capture the flag
Yeah,
event.
capture the
If
flag.
you go to any cybersecurity conference, like recently there was a NAHAM conference, NAHAM Con for
Hmm.
2 days, and there was a CTF thing event associated with it,
Hmm.
and I think it was there for 1 or 2 days, and there are like beginner, medium, hard, insane level challenges, and the most important thing is the solutions are not available for that. And it's a type of event where if you are the first one to solve it, then you will get the most points.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. Yes. So if it's a 500 point challenge, then Fami is the first person to solve it, then Fami will get 500. Then the next person will get 498 or something,
Yeah.
depending on how much users have registered.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the calculation is done on that.
So both
A
time
great
and
website.
efficiency.
Yes, mostly it is not the time, it is the per number of person who have
Okay.
solved it. Because
Okay.
these events are only for 2 or 3 days. I've not seen an event more than that.
Okay.
Sometimes the event is only for 1 day,
One day.
but
Yeah.
they have like 4 or 5 categories like web, reverse engineering, mobile, pawning, and miscellaneous cryptography and
Cryptography.
etc.
I love cryptography.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
so quick question. Well, not a digression. So I know there's so much. Do you need certifications to get into the industry? You don't need certifications. You need practice. You need certifications. Do you think certifications are important to starting out a career as a pen tester? If so, do you have any particular certifications you can recommend that you should get as you're starting your career, or is it okay to first build experience and then go for certifications later on?
The certification, especially for penetration testing, are very expensive for a beginner to
Yes.
actually get it. So, but recently there was someone like us who saw this and he started his own company with certifications and courses focused on offensive security. And later on, he has a lot of courses, and those courses are actually very valuable. That's why I'm mentioning him, the cyber mentor or Heath Adams.
Yeah.
So he has his one certification called PNPT. It is
Okay.
Practical Network Penetration Testing, and it is a certificate for 5 days, and you have to break into there are certain labs and stuff and you have to break into it, but the price for it is around 300 to $400. So I believe compared to the competitors which are like 2000 US dollars and 2500 US dollars, so
Hmm.
I don't think that any student or any college student or someone who is switching can afford that.
For that, yes. Yeah,
Yes,
true.
so that is one. But according to me, see, family, I have been in this industry for 7 or 8 years, and
Mm.
I have never seen someone who has break into a government and who has security plus and like any of those certifications.
Yeah.
So I think it's curiosity. I'll tell you how I started. When I was in my ninth grade, I started developing C programming,
Mm.
and my mentor was one of the engineers at ISRO.
Okay.
So ISRO, if you don't know, it's Indian Space Research Organization.
Organization, yeah.
And I was the only student of him who was still in school and studying with him.
You started very
And
young.
yes, yes. And after that, with the coding knowledge and everything, when I joined my university, there was a 2 day workshop. And till today, I thank that person to conduct a 2 day workshop where he taught us some basic techniques on how to bypass login screens and all those stuffs. And
Yeah.
yes, right now it's a child's play when you see that changing the setc.exe and command.exe and all the stuff. But the real interest started at that time. And also, I used to play a lot of games, and games are very expensive if you are not earning. So I also
Yes,
went
true.
into yes, I also went into some onto some websites and tried to download the cracks and patches and mods available.
And get
And
some
that also
viruses
is
on
a
the way.
yeah, but at that time it didn't occur to me. Right
Mm.
now I don't
Yeah.
suggest anyone to do that, but that was a part of learning for me.
Yeah.
And so from there, I learned how what are Windows exploits and kernel exploits. And then my bachelor university had a huge lab and a
Okay.
huge library, and but there was no one using it in after hours. So what I did is from there I started exploiting any machine that I get my hands on because we had a full-time employee who was responsible for
For
IT
the IT
administrative
admin.
support.
Okay.
So even if I break anything, I just used to tell them that, oh, I don't know, the machine just stopped working,
Okay.
you know?
Go and reboot
Yes,
it.
yes. And that's one thing, and that's one thing.
Hmm.
Uh, from there, I also started researching on Ubuntu exploits, Linux
Okay. Yeah.
exploits. At that point, I was learning Linux, and because of the computational power, I I was using Linux Ubuntu on my personal laptop as well because 2 GB RAM and all those criteria it fulfills. So, and from there it started. But what I realized, Fami, at that point, and everyone who's listening to this podcast should listen this, is because that when you are new to the industry, you will not find the flaws which are which others will find faster than you
Yeah.
because you don't have the knowledge and methodology and experience with you. So what I used to do, I had classmates of more than 60 students who were developing applications. Someone was developing applications on Websa, on .NET, C Sharp, Java, and everything. So after their examination, I used to go to them, collect their source code, run them, and try to break into them because they did not know anything about security,
Yeah.
and
So no,
that's
no
why
security
they're
from the start.
yes. So it was very easy. I was able
Yeah.
to break into application RCE, XSS, SQL injection was very common to find, and
Mm.
that's how I started. And then I started playing CTX,
Mm.
and then there was one of our own, like what you say, alumni, someone
Yeah.
who is
Hmm.
senior to
Yeah.
us. So he started his company, and then he told to me that because we are not on budget, so we need someone, And so that's how I got my first project. And when he gave me the Hall of Fame and all those stuff, and that's how I got my first internship, and eventually from the internship it became into a full-time job. But that's how I started. Now that was a time, Femi, when there was not a lot of resources and blogs available. So
Yeah.
there are two dimensions in the industry. Before 2019, 2018, there were not so much resources. But today, if someone comes to me and asks, okay, where do you start in pen testing or offensive security or red team, I will not answer that because after 2019, thanks to COVID, one thing that COVID did is a lot of people started writing blogs,
Yeah.
YouTube channels, content creation,
All of
and
that.
everything boomed after that. So
Yeah.
today there are lots and lots of blogs for certifications, for genuine techniques, XSS, RCE, securityidiots.com, and then there is Medium blogs.
Yeah.
People have their
Yeah.
own website as a blogging thing. So there are lots and lots of resources. So you just need to go out and research, and just a simple Google search will give you lots and lots of
Or
results
ask
in terms of.
ChatGPT if you don't want to do all this sifting through.
Yes, yes. I think Chat GPT should be used in a different way, in my
Yeah.
experience, and I'm doing a research paper on Chat GPT
Yeah.
with some of my fellow uh, ex-colleagues, should I say. So yes, we are testing ChatGPT and the extremes of ChatGPT, that how far ChatGPT can go in
Mhm.
terms of writing code, and so it's basically our research is mostly based on how we, as an offensive security, we can write ChatGPT, and mostly we are using it for exploit writing. So we
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
ChatGPT that give us a script of nmap, AMAS, subfinder, subroot, all those tools in one, and redirect the previous tool's output to the next
Next
tool,
one. Yeah. So you just
and
keep
then
on
save all the
chaining
output.
it on like that. You just chain it.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, because previously we used to write the tools and then we used to test it. But now I believe ChatGPT is efficient in doing that.
Yeah.
So a lot of scripting and those efforts are done. I myself have written a script for Nmap using ChatGPT that performs a lot of checks. I'm not sure whether this would be allowed in OSCP or not, but
We'll see with time.
yes,
Mm,
but it performs a lot of checks for CVEs, vulnerabilities and everything. Usually before ChatGPT, everyone has their own OneNote and Obsidian or Cherry Tree and those tools where they have their own methodology of how to pursue. But now with ChatGPT, I think people will use ChatGPT and give an OSCP exam. I'm not sure, but there
yeah,
is always a moderator to watch that what you are doing. But the point here is that a lot of scripting work and a lot of reverse engineering and all those things that you have to do it manually, ChatGPT can do it
automate
for
that.
you
Yeah,
in
seconds.
seconds,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we've established that it's important for you to, get some experience, build a portfolio, learn before you earn. So let's say you've done all the learning. Now you want to earn. What's the best way to navigate that hiring landscape? How can what's the best way to get your foot in the door or get that job that's going to allow you to actually practice as a legal pen
Yes.
tester?
Yes. So the first thing you can do is a lot of people when I meet them, when I meet them on LinkedIn or any other social network, and when I meet them in person, there is a huge difference in understanding. And when that happens with me, it is a kind of a red flag. Like a person who has no experience but knows web, mobile network, and everything.
Hmm.
And when I come and meet that person, for example, at besides Vancouver, I met a student, and uh, he said that I have like 2 years of pen testing experience, but there is a recession and market is down, so I'm not able to find anything. And so then I asked him a couple of questions because at that time I had someone reached out to me that if you know someone who is a offensive security or a penetration tester or
Yeah, that
stuff.
was a role.
So I asked him what is XSS and what is SQL injection and those stuff, and
He couldn't
the
answer.
answer was the answer was quite dangerous to hear from what my perspective is, because someone comes and tell you, Fami, I have like 2 years of experience. So
You
I
should know the
XSS
basics.
and yes, XSS and SQL I should at least he should answer.
Yeah.
But that was not happening. So my advice is to start with
Okay.
web application pen testing, because a lot of curriculum is based on uh, a lot of college curriculum is based on developing web application. So I believe it is easy to break through your career through web application pen
Mm,
testing, and then eventually you can move into it. The main ideology is not to learn one domain, but to learn the methodology related to the domain.
yeah, exactly.
And then kind of you build your career from it. People have a different mindset of learning every tools,
You
like
can't
web
learn every
application.
tool.
Okay, yes, no, but I have seen students. I have
Hmm.
seen students uh, like when I do AMA, ask me anything and all those stuff. Most of the questions are very familiar and repetitive. That okay, which tool should I learn? And I'll break into security architect. I'll break into offensive security. And the most common answers and the most common perceptions of students are, okay, I learn burp suite, I learn a little bit of Nmap, and then Metasploit also comes into, but you don't need to learn Metasploit. You just have to type question mark and you have to go from all the options it
Yeah,
throws to
gives
you.
you. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't see a point in learning at a student level, at a beginner level. When you progress, you would learn the encoding and preparing shells and all those stuffs. But yes, but again, so this is how Portsfigure Labs, if anyone wants to start a web application security kind of journey, Then Portseeker labs are for free, and they have more than 150 exercises on there to solve for SQL injection, XSS, SSRF, SSTI, XXE, a lot of things. At least you should know the basics. If I
Absolutely.
come and
Yeah.
ask you what is SSRF, you should know how SSRF works. If I come and ask you, okay, what is a double order SQL injection? And if you don't know as a beginner, then that's okay for you. Why you don't know? Because probably you have not encountered an exercise related to that. But exercise, these are like over top 10
Well,
is
top 10,
you
exactly.
should at
Yeah. You
least
should know them.
you should at least
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
The
we've gone
other
over a lot. We've gone over a lot. I was just going to say
yes.
it's been so much, and it's been great having you here. For those who are listening, those who are watching, I'm going to link Harsh's LinkedIn profile down in the description. So if you want to connect with Harsh, please go ahead and do that. Um, there's also going to be a link to a few other resources as well in the description. But just before we round it up, and this is something that I'm going to say something here. Not many people know, but Harsh is a very funny guy. So I'm sure he's going to throw some humor into the next thing he's going to say. So, any final tips? Any last minute tips for anyone who has listened to all of this? We've taken all of this together, so bring it together. Final tips. Wrap it up in a bow.
Final tips for anyone who is breaking into offensive security is to actually look at the job descriptions and see whether you at least know 50%
Of it.
or you have heard about the terms
Mm,
written in the job description, at least 50%. Then the other 50% you can learn,
on the
you can
job.
build and suffer. And even if you don't know 50%, but if you are very confident, because I have achieved a lot of things that other people told me that I won't
Be
be
able to.
achieving. So that's one advice I would give it to you that don't rely on people, but you should spend at least 1 hour or 90 minutes per week if you're in Canada, because in Canada uh, you're not that independent.
Yeah.
At
True.
least 60 minutes, 90 minutes in learning new things in cybersecurity. And if you do that, then you can really make a career out of it because there are lots and lots of openings and stuff in offensive security, cybersecurity compliance, and a lot of stuff. And I have like more than 15, 20 students. I have a student who was a nurse, was in the medical field. Now in US, he's working as a penetration tester,
Just
a
yeah.
full-time penetration tester. One of our HR, I trained her to find people on LinkedIn. Now she's also working as a penetration tester.
She found the light.
So yes, so after that incident, I was not allowed to train HRs because we were leaving
Dude, you steal
because the
them.
HR department was leaving,
Get it
so I was
smaller.
told not to do. Yes, but at the end of the day, you have to mitigate the gap that you have from your university or from all theoretical based knowledge
Yeah.
and what industry requires. Because if you are hacking into something, you will be breaking that stuff. And so that's why I need a reliable candidate who knows what he is doing. Otherwise, you will come in the tomorrow morning's newspaper, but that will be
Interpol
an
is looking for
infamous
you.
thing to do. Yes, that would be an infamous thing to do.
That's absolutely true. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, Harsh. It's been good.
Yes,
I'm sure the audience has found a lot of value in all the things you've said. And
yes.
we're gonna, this is gonna go out there. So if you wanted to do anything along the lines of offensive security, you've had it all today. There's so much potential there, but first you've got to do it the legal way, and there's so much opportunity. But like Harsh said, if you want to take anything away, take it away. You've got to learn before you earn, and then once you learn,
Yes.
the sky is your limit to earning. So thank you for joining us again on today's episode. Follow us
Thank you for inviting me.
On Spotify. We're also available on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube as well. Subscribe on to our channel so you can actually get notified of new episodes as they drop. We're going to be having this as well every fortnight. And until we come your way again next time on another episode of the Cybersec Migrant Podcast, it's bye from me And also, thank you again to Harsh for joining us today. Bye for now.
The pleasure is mine. Bye.